If you're so smart, then you should pay your own bills." My mom's voice was very loud. It felt like a sharp piece of broken glass cutting through the air of our tiny, cramped apartment. I was still wearing my work uniform, which was messy and covered in grease stains from a long, hard day at my job. My feet were throbbing and sore because I had just finished working 2 shifts in a row. I was so tired I could barely stand up straight. Instead of asking how I was, my mom pushed a big pile of late notices into my hands. She acted like these bills were all my fault just because I lived there. She didn't ask if I was hungry or if my day was okay. She just stood there with angry, blazing eyes. She looked at me like I was the only reason her whole life had turned into a mess. I looked down at the papers in my hands. I saw the big red numbers and the words "past due" staring back at me. I told her quietly that I had already paid the last 2 big bills, but she didn't care. She just made a mean sound and told me that if I was so educated and grown up, I should pay the rest of them myself. She leaned in close, almost spitting the words at me. She told me to prove I was independent by paying every single bill. At that moment, something inside of me finally snapped. For so many years, I had worked hard, studied for my classes, and handed over every single paycheck to her. All the while, she just played the victim and acted like life was unfair to her. That night, the guilt I usually felt just disappeared. I wasn't sad anymore. I was just very, very angry. I didn't yell back and I didn't cry. I just walked calmly to my room. I grabbed my backpack and started stuffing it with my clothes and my laptop. I also took the one framed photo I had of me and my dad. My hands were shaking a lot, but my mind had never felt so clear. She followed me down the hallway and asked where I thought I was going. I looked at her and said quietly, "You told me to pay my own bills, so I am going to go live my own life." I walked out of the door that night and I did not look back. 1 month later, my phone lit up with her name. I waited for a second, then I picked it up. She was screaming and sounded completely panicked. She wanted to know why the power was off and what I had done. I took a very slow breath. I felt the weight of everything I had planned since the night I left. What I said to her next left her completely speechless. And that was only the start of my plan. To really understand why that phone call felt so good, you have to know the whole story of how we got to that point. My name is Sarah, and I am 22 years old. For as long as I can remember, our house was ruled by money, or the fact that we never had any. When my dad walked out on us many years ago, he didn't just leave my mom. He left me, too. He left behind one old photo, a giant pile of unpaid bills, and a woman who slowly changed her sadness into a weapon. My mom, Cynthia, used to be a very warm person. I remember when she used to laugh and play with me. But after my dad left, she became hard and cold. Every time a bill wasn't paid, or a machine in the house broke, or she couldn't get a job, she found a way to make it my fault. When I got my very first part-time job at 16, she told me she would take my bank card to keep it safe. She would tell me that we were a team. But then she would use my whole paycheck to pay for the rent, her cigarettes, and cheap wine. By the time I started college, I realized that team really just meant me. She stopped looking for a steady job. Instead, she just waited for my scholarship money, my student loans, and the extra money I made from side jobs. If I ever complained even a little bit, she would snap at me. She would ask if I wanted us to live on the street. She reminded me that my father didn't care about us, but she was the one who stayed. So because I felt bad, I stayed too. I worked late, I studied even later, and I gave her every single dollar I made. Whenever I tried to set a rule or keep some of my own money, she would twist my words. She would say I thought I was better than her just because I was going to college. It felt like my hard work was an insult to her. The night she told me to pay your own bills, it wasn't just about the electricity or the rent. It was about all those years of her treating me like an ATM. She used me for money and never cared about my feelings. After I walked out, I went to my friend Lily's house. I crashed on her couch that night. Lily was the only person who had watched this whole mess from the outside for a long time. We sat in her dark living room while the light from a street lamp came through the blinds. I kept replaying the argument in my head over and over. Lily whispered to me that I had finally left and that I should have done it years ago. I knew she was right, but I was still worried. I looked at my phone and waited for a bunch of mean texts, but they didn't come right away. I realized that my mom still had my name on everything. My name was on the lease for the apartment, the power bill, and the internet. I knew that if she stopped paying, the companies would come after me, not her. Lily asked if I could just remove my name from the accounts. That was a very simple question, but it made me realize something big. I had spent years cleaning up her messes and protecting her from the consequences of her choices. For the first time in my life, I wondered what would happen if I just stopped helping her and let her face the truth. A few days later, I went back to my old apartment to get the rest of my things. I made sure to go while she was out of the house. While I was there, I saw something that made my heart stop. There was a thick envelope on the table with my name on it. It wasn't my mom's name. It was mine. It said "Final Notice" in big letters. I opened it and felt a sick feeling in my stomach. It wasn't just a regular power bill. It was for a credit card that I never even opened. There was a debt of thousands of dollars in my name. I stood all alone in that quiet, stuffy apartment and looked at the proof. This wasn't just a mom who was struggling and needed help from her daughter. This was a total betrayal. At that moment, my idea for revenge stopped being just a thought. It became a real plan. I took that envelope and a few others I found and ran back to Lily's house. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. We spread all the letters across her coffee table. It looked like a crime scene. There it was, over and over again. My name and my secret social security number were being buried under charges I never made. There were bills from clothing stores where I never shopped. There was money spent on takeout food from places across town late at night. There were even cash loans. Lily looked at me with wide eyes and told me this was identity theft. She said it was illegal. I whispered that she was my mom, but even as I said it, the words felt very weak. I remembered all the times she told me letters were just junk mail. I remembered her making me sign forms without letting me read them. I remembered her getting mad if I asked too many questions. I trusted her because she was my mother, but I never knew she was willing to ruin my future just to make her own life comfortable right now. Lily put her hand on my arm and told me I couldn't keep covering for her. She said my mom wasn't just using my money anymore, she was using my name. That night, while Lily was asleep, I sat alone with my laptop and all those letters. I looked up my credit report for the very first time. Every line on the screen felt like a punch to my stomach. There were utility accounts, credit cards, and a small loan that I never applied for. I started writing every single thing down in a notebook. I wrote down the account numbers, the dates, and how much money was owed. I remembered every single time she said, "Sign here," or "I'll handle the mail." I took pictures of the text messages where she tried to make me feel guilty so I would send her more money. I even saved the voicemails where she was yelling and accusing me of things. It felt wrong at first, like I was the one betraying her. But then I remembered that stack of red, past due notices. I remembered her screaming at me to pay my own bills. I remembered that she never once said she was sorry for dumping all of her life's problems on top of mine. The next day, Lily took me to a legal aid clinic where people get help for free. I showed the woman at the desk my documents. My hands were trembling the whole time. She looked through them very carefully and then looked me in the eyes. She told me that legally this was very serious. She said I had options. I could argue against the accounts, file a report about the fraud, and even call the police to press charges if I wanted to. "Press charges?" I asked. My voice sounded very small. I couldn't imagine doing that to my own mother, but the woman corrected me. She said I would be pressing charges against the person who stole my identity. She told me that being a mother is not an excuse for breaking the law. I walked out of there shaking, but something inside me had changed. For years, my mom had hidden behind the word family like it was a shield. She thought it made her so no one could touch her. That night, I closed my bank account and opened a new one at a different bank. I changed where my work money was sent. I called the utility companies and told them to remove my name from everything at her address. When I called about the electricity, the woman on the phone told me that if my name was gone, the person living there would be fully responsible. She said if the bill didn't get paid, the power would be turned off. I told her that was fine and that I wouldn't be making any more payments. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. This wasn't me being a brat. This wasn't me being selfish or ungrateful like she always said. This was me finally cutting the rope she had wrapped around my neck for years. Lily was watching me from the doorway and asked how I felt. I told her I was scared, but for the first time, I felt like I wasn't the one about to get burned. I knew the bills would be due very soon. And this time, when everything fell apart, she wouldn't be able to push the mess onto me. She wanted me to pay my own bills. Fine. I decided she was finally going to have to pay hers. About a month after I left, my life was finally starting to feel like it belonged to me. I was working extra hours at my job. I found a small, cheap room to rent so I didn't have to stay on Lily's couch forever. I was slowly starting to fix the giant mountain of debt my mom had built in my name. I had told the credit card companies about the fraud, and I kept every piece of proof against her in a neat folder. But there was one thing I still hadn't done. I hadn't called her. I saw her missed calls and read her mean text messages, but I never responded. She sent messages asking where I was and saying I couldn't ignore her forever. She said I thought I was too good for my own mother. Each message just made the wall between us even taller. Then one evening, while I was folding my work uniforms on my bed, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a real call. Her name was on the screen. I almost didn't answer it. But then I remembered the call I made to the power company weeks ago. I was curious, so I picked up. "Sarah," she yelled immediately. She sounded so upset. She asked what I had done and why the power was off. She said the whole apartment was dark and her food was going bad. She said she couldn't even charge her phone. I could almost see her pacing around the room, acting like this was a total surprise. She acted like bills were just some random punishment from the universe. I took a deep breath and kept my voice very calm. I asked her if she had paid the electric bill. She snapped at me and told me not to start with her. She said I always handled it before. She said the power company told her the account holder removed herself and that there was a late balance. She asked why I would do that to her and if I was trying to ruin her life. For a second, I felt that old guilt again. A part of me wanted to run over there with my bank card and fix everything. I wanted to apologize for even leaving, but then I thought about those envelopes. I thought about the fraud and my ruined credit score. I thought about her screaming in my face to pay my own bills. I told her slowly that I didn't do anything to her. I just stopped paying for her. There was total silence on the other end of the phone. She finally asked what that was supposed to mean. I explained that the electricity account was now only in her name. I told her I removed myself from it. I told her that if she didn't pay it, they would cut it off, because that is how the world works. I told her I wasn't her cosigner or her backup plan anymore. She called me an ungrateful child and said she had sacrificed everything for me. She said I was just abandoning her in the dark. I corrected her. My voice was shaking, but I stayed steady. I told her she didn't sacrifice for me. She sacrificed me. I told her she stole my money and opened credit cards in my name. I told her she wrecked my credit and made me responsible for her life, and then she blamed me every time things weren't good enough. She screamed that it wasn't true because she was my mother. She acted like that one word made all the bad things go away. I told her I had copies of everything, the accounts, the signatures, and the statements. I told her I had already started disputing the charges. I told her I had talked to legal aid and that this wasn't just family drama anymore. She went completely silent. She finally whispered my name. Her voice sounded very small. She asked if I would really turn on her like that and bring strangers into our business. I told her it became my business when she put everything in my name. She tried one last way to hurt me. She said if I told anyone, she would tell the whole family how I left her. She said they would all know how selfish I was. I almost laughed. I told her that was good because I was done being the secret she used to hide her bad behavior. I told her if she wanted to talk to the family, we would all talk, and I would show them the proof. The phone line just crackled with her silence. For the first time in my life, I wasn't begging her to be quiet. I wasn't saying sorry just to stop the fighting. I was the calm one, and she was the one who was losing control. I told her to get used to it. I said the power going off was only the first bill coming due. I hung up the phone before she could say another word. My heart was racing, but it felt like jumping off a cliff and realizing you could actually fly. My revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was just about refusing to let her hurt me anymore. But I knew her. She wouldn't give up quietly, and I was right. The next time she called, she didn't just scream, she threatened me. The text messages came first. She said I was destroying her and that she raised me alone. She said I was repaying her in a horrible way. She said if I didn't fix it, she would make sure everyone knew what I did. I ignored her until one message made me feel sick. She said she told my aunt that I had stolen from her. This was what she always did. If she couldn't control me, she would try to control what people thought about me. But not this time. My aunt called me the next day and she was very angry. She asked how I could take money from my mother and then leave her. She said my mom was sitting in the dark because of me. I let her talk for a while. Then I asked her calmly if she had seen any of the bills or any proof. She said she hadn't. So I told her I would bring everything over that night. I told her to invite anyone she wanted, including my mom. That evening, I walked into my aunt's house with my folder under my arm. My mom was already there. She was sitting on the couch looking small and sad, like she was the victim. She didn't even look at me. My aunt said this had gone far enough and that I owed my mother. I opened the folder and put a stack of papers on the table. I told them I owed her the truth. I showed them the electric bills in my name. I showed them the credit card statements. I showed them the loan paper with my mom's handwriting pretending to be mine. I showed them my credit report, page after page of debt. I told them to look at the names on the accounts. My aunt picked up a paper and looked confused. She saw everything was in my name. I told her every single account was opened and used by my mom while I was at work or in class. I didn't even know they existed until I moved out. My mom jumped up and called me an ungrateful snake. She said I was digging through her private papers to make her look bad. I told her she did that to herself. I told her she yelled at me to pay my own bills while she was secretly stealing my future by putting her bills in my name. I told her that wasn't being a parent, it was using me. My aunt's face went white as she looked through the pages. She asked my mom if it was true. My mom's sad look was gone. She snapped and said we were family. She said kids are supposed to help their parents and that my aunt wouldn't understand because she had a husband who stayed. My aunt got very angry. She asked my mom if she thought her daughter's future was just an emergency fund for her to spend. My mom looked at me with very mean eyes. She said I went to strangers and lawyers who didn't care about me. She said she was my blood. I told her that being blood doesn't give her the right to hurt me until I have nothing left. I reached into my folder one more time. I pulled out a printed email. I told them these were my disputes with the credit companies and the fraud report I filed. I told them I had to name the person who opened the accounts without my permission. My aunt's eyes got wide. She realized I had officially named my mother as a thief. I told her I had to do it. If I didn't, I would be responsible for all that money for the next 20 years. I told them my mom kept telling me to grow up while she refused to grow up herself. My mom tried to grab the papers, but my aunt stopped her. She told my mom that she had lied to the family. She said my mom told everyone I stole from her, but it was really the other way around. The doorbell rang right then. I had asked the landlord of the apartment to stop by. He was a firm man. He said he wouldn't stay long, but he needed to confirm some things. He told us that I was officially removed from the lease. He said the apartment would only be in my mom's name now. But he also looked at my mom and said that if she didn't pay the money she owed, he would have to kick her out. My mom's face went pale. She realized she was going to be evicted. The landlord told her she had received many notices. He said he couldn't keep a tenant who didn't pay when their cosigner had left. My mom turned to me with fire in her eyes. She said I was throwing her out of her own home. I told her I just stopped letting her use my name as a shield. I told her that whatever happened next was between her and the bills she told me to stop paying. The room felt like it was full of electricity. She whispered that I would regret this and that one day I would need her. I thought about my ruined credit and all the nights I cried while she slept on the couch with the TV on. I told her I already regretted not doing this sooner. For the first time, when she walked out of the room, I didn't follow her. I let her go. The next few days felt very strange. My aunt stopped defending my mom and started calling me to see how she could help. The whole family found out the truth because they saw the papers. They realized I hadn't abandoned her. I had escaped from her. My mom kept sending me messages that were part sad and part angry. She asked how I could humiliate her and said everyone thought she was a monster because of me. She said she only did those things to keep us alive. Then she sent a message saying I was a mistake anyway. I blocked her number. It felt hard, but I knew it was necessary. At work, I took on more hours. I even met with a counselor at my school. She helped me understand that what I went through wasn't just a struggling mom situation. It was abuse. I told her I still felt guilty, like I was the bad guy in the story. She told me that was because I had been the parent for years while my mom acted like the child. She said now that I was stopping, my mom was trying to punish me. She told me that didn't make me a villain. It made me someone who finally stopped letting someone else hurt them. The legal and money problems started to get a little better. Some of the fake accounts were frozen and the companies were investigating. My credit score stopped getting worse. It wasn't fixed yet, but I could see a path forward. A few weeks later, my aunt called me. She said there was a notice on my mom's door. She was being evicted and had 30 days to leave. I closed my eyes. I had thought about this moment many times when I was angry, but hearing it for real actually hurt. My aunt said my mom was telling everyone that I set this up to destroy her, but she also said most of the family knew my mom did this to herself. She told me she was proud of me even if it was messy. I hung up the phone and just sat in my small room. This wasn't a movie with happy music. It was just quiet and complicated. I felt a big ache in my chest, but I also felt a lot of relief. 1 week before the eviction, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and found my mom standing there. She looked much smaller. She looked very tired. She had dark circles under her eyes and her hair was a mess. She told me I blocked her number, so she had to come in person. My heart started beating fast, but I didn't let her in. I stood in the doorway and asked what she wanted. She laughed in a bitter way. She said she wanted her life back. She said she wanted electricity and a roof and some dignity. She acted like I was the one who took it all. I reminded her that she had all of those things before she started using me like a credit card. She flinched and said she made mistakes because she was scared after my father left. She said every month was like a fire she had to put out. I told her that she grabbed me and my future to keep herself afloat. She got angry and said she thought I would be grateful when I was older. I was stunned. I asked her how I could be grateful for being in debt before I even started my life. I asked how I could be grateful for having to fix my credit because she wouldn't face her own problems. She told me to go ahead and hate her. She said when her stuff was on the street, everyone would remember my name too. They would say I was the daughter who let it happen. I took a breath and told her I didn't let it happen. I just stopped letting her happen to me. She looked at me for a long time, waiting for me to apologize or help her. I didn't. I told her I wasn't coming to fix this. I wasn't paying her rent or turning the lights on. I told her she could go to a clinic or get a job that wasn't about stealing from people who loved her. I told her I would not be her crutch anymore. Tears filled her eyes. For a second, I saw the mom she used to be when she would braid my hair. Then she turned away and told me I would regret this. I watched her walk down the hall and realized she had been saying that my whole life. This time, I didn't believe her. The day they actually came to kick her out was a gray and cloudy morning. I knew it was happening, but I didn't want to go anywhere near that apartment. Then my phone rang from a number I didn't know. My gut told me to answer it. It was my mom. She was using a neighbor's phone. She told me they were there. I could imagine the movers and the police officer and the boxes on the sidewalk. I stayed silent. She told me they were putting all the furniture on the curb, including my old dresser and the kitchen table. She said they were her things now. She laughed and said I should come see the result of my smart girl decisions. I told her that this was really the result of her decisions, not mine. There was a long silence between us. She finally asked if I was happy and if I felt like I got my revenge. I told her it was never about revenge. It was about surviving. I told her I didn't burn her life down, I just stopped holding up the parts she refused to touch. She whispered that I could have fixed it. I told her I did help for years with my money and my time. But she never called it help. She called it what I owed her. I told her that as soon as I wanted my own life, she called me selfish. As soon as I protected myself, she called it revenge. She asked me if I liked hearing the panic in her voice when the power went out. I was honest. I told her that part of me did like it. I told her that part of me needed her to feel a little bit of the fear I felt every time she gave me a bill I couldn't pay. But I told her the difference was that she was an adult who could work. When the lights went out for me, I was just a kid, and she was the one who turned them off. She didn't have an answer for that. I asked her where she would go. She said my aunt was letting her stay for a while, but she wasn't going to pay her debts. She said everyone had grown a backbone after I showed them the truth. I told her that is just what happens when people know the truth. I heard people in the background telling her she needed to sign some papers. I asked her why she really called me. There was a long pause, and then she asked if any part of me still loved her. That question hurt me very much. I leaned against the wall and felt tears in my eyes. I thought about bedtime stories and birthday cakes. I also thought about the screaming matches and the bills. I told her I did love her, and that was what made all of this so painful. I told her if I didn't love her, walking away would have been easy. She started crying and asked why I let it get this far. I told her it was because loving her didn't mean letting her destroy me. It didn't mean I had to ignore what she did. I told her that her choices cost her the apartment, not my rules. She asked if I was just done with her. I told her I was done being her wallet and her shield. I told her if she ever decided to get real help and go to therapy and pay back what she took, I would listen. But until then, I was going to give her space. The silence was heavier than before. She told me again that I would regret this. I told her I already regretted the years I lost trying to save her from her own choices. I told her I wasn't going to lose any more of my life. In the background, I heard the landlord telling her she had to finish up. She whispered goodbye, and I said it back. I told her I hoped she would one day pay her debts to the people who loved her. She didn't say anything, but I heard her breath hitch before the phone went dead. I stood alone in my room feeling empty but also very light. Across town, the apartment where I grew up was being emptied. The power was off. My mom once told me to pay my own bills. In the end, that is exactly what I did. I paid mine, and for the first time she was being forced to pay hers. I was finally free.